The less you respond to nonsense, the more powerful your silence becomes. My friends, sometimes the loudest move you can make is to disappear. No warning, no dramatic goodbye, just silence. Clean, calm, and devastating. They won't even realize what's happening at first. But then it hits. Not like a scream, but like a room that used to be full of music and is now just empty. That's the power you hold when you stop chasing and walk away. Not to prove a point, not to play games, but because you've finally had enough of being the one who always tries, always reaches, always holds things together. Before we dive deep into what really happens when you vanish, hit that like button if you've ever had to pull back just to protect your peace. If you're done performing for people who clap when they feel like it, go ahead and subscribe. This is the place for those who choose stillness over chaos, dignity over drama, and power over performance. Hey folks, imagine this. You're a river flowing steadily, giving life. But some people walk beside you as if your water is endless. They throw stones, build dams, take what they need, and never stop to appreciate the way you move. Until one day the river goes dry. Not because it's gone forever, but because it redirected. Now they're standing there, thirsty, wondering what happened to the stream that once fed them. But it's too late. You're not angry. You're just done. That's what it feels like when you stop chasing. That's what it means when you disappear. And here's the truth, my friend. You didn't leave to be cruel. You left because staying started to hurt more than walking away. You were tired of explaining yourself to someone who never really listened. Tired of texting first. Tired of trying to be seen by someone who looked everywhere but at you. One day, you just stop. You don't throw a fit. You don't slam doors. You just choose silence, and that silence echoes louder than anything you could have said. We've been lied to, fed this belief that real love means chasing. That if someone pulls away, you've got to run after them. That if you disappear, they'll forget you. But that's a lie. People don't forget presence, they forget noise. If all you ever were was convenience, sure, they'll replace that in a minute. But if you were peace, if you were presence, that kind of absence burns, not at first, but over time. When the distractions fade, they'll feel it in the quiet, in the late nights, in the little things. When you stop chasing, they don't get the closure they expected, and that's what messes with them. They thought you'd beg, thought you'd break, thought your silence was temporary. But you didn't just stop talking, you stopped showing up, and that's a different kind of pain. That's not revenge, that's rebirth. Sometimes not saying a word says everything. You're not punishing them, you're protecting your peace. You're not being cold, you're finally being clear. And when they realize they can't reach you anymore, not because you blocked them, but because you outgrew them, that's when the silence turns into regret. So if you felt this shift, if you've stopped chasing, if you're walking in silence but standing taller than ever before, I want you to drop this in the comments right now. My silence speaks. Say it, own it, let it be your message, your moment, your mirror. Remember, this isn't just silence, this is power, this is clarity, this is you, unbothered, unshaken, and unavailable to the things that no longer deserve access. Tap like, subscribe, and stay with me, my friend, because what happens next? Oh, they feel it, and it's only just begun. Number 1, the power shift begins the moment you walk away. Once you stop seeking validation, their power over you disappears. It doesn't take a dramatic exit. It doesn't need loud goodbyes, screaming matches, or a long speech full of pain. Sometimes the biggest shift, the most powerful move you'll ever make, is the moment you stop chasing. Just one quiet step in the other direction, and the entire dynamic collapses. That's when things really begin to change. Not for them, but for you. Imagine you're a bright sun in someone's sky. Every morning they count on your light, your warmth, your presence. They never thank you. They just expect you to rise, to shine, to give. Then one day you don't. You disappear behind the clouds, not because you're gone, but because you're no longer shining for someone who took your light for granted. Now the air is colder, the sky is dimmer, and they finally realize you mattered. But the moment of realization, it's already too late. The sun didn't set out of bitterness, it just rose somewhere else. This is what happens when you walk away. This is the beginning of the power shift. And it doesn't happen when you yell. It doesn't happen when you explain yourself over and over, hoping they'll finally get it. No, it happens the moment you stop trying, the moment you stop reaching, the moment you stop begging to be chosen and choose yourself instead. That's when the game ends. But let's be real, my friend. This isn't easy. The second you pull away, your mind plays tricks on you. What if they don't care? What if they move on? What if my silence means nothing to them? That fear, that doubt, that's not weakness. That's the part of you that's been conditioned to believe that your worth is tied to someone else's attention. That if you don't chase, you'll be forgotten. That if you stop giving, you'll be replaced. Let me break that lie wide open. You won't be forgotten, you'll be felt. You won't be replaced, you'll be remembered. When someone gets used to your energy, your loyalty, your patience, your presence, it becomes part of their comfort. The second you remove that presence, they don't just miss you, they feel lost without you, not because they need your voice, but because they depended on the way you made them feel secure. And now they're insecure, not because you shouted, not because you slammed the door, but because you disappeared without a trace, without a scene, without feeding the drama. And that silence, that calm exit, hits 10 times harder than anything you could have said. You were the anchor they didn't know they needed until the ship started drifting. Now they're searching for stability in a storm they created, and you're no longer there to hold them steady. Let me tell you why this moment is so important. They were never truly afraid of losing you. What they were afraid of was you waking up to your worth, of you realizing that the love you gave so freely was a gift, not a guarantee. That the time, the attention, the presence you offered wasn't owed, it was chosen. The moment you stop choosing them, their power collapses. See, chasing makes them comfortable. It tells them they're in control. That no matter how they act, you'll keep showing up. That they can breadcrumb you, test your patience, leave you unread, and still somehow you'll come back. That's the illusion, that's the trap. But the moment you break the cycle, when you stop running after the person who keeps walking away, that's when everything shifts. Now they're not sure anymore. Now the control they thought they had starts slipping through their fingers. Now they're sitting in the same silence you once sat in, wondering, are they really gone this time? And that silence, that's the sound of your power returning. But here's the part most people don't talk about. You will feel afraid too. You'll feel the silence and mistake it for abandonment. You'll miss them and think it means you made a mistake. You'll confuse peace with loneliness. That's the growing pain. That's the detox. You're not just letting go of a person. You're letting go of a pattern where you gave too much and expected too little. A pattern where your fear of being forgotten kept you stuck in a cycle of chasing. Let that fear come, let it shake, and then let it go. Because you are not desperate, you are disciplined. And discipline means standing still even when your heart wants to reach out. It means holding the line even when your fingers want to text. It means letting them feel the loss without rushing in to comfort them. That's where the shift happens. Not when you walk away with a speech, but when you walk away with silence. Trust me, they will feel it. Not always right away, not always loud, but in quiet moments, in old songs, in missed routines, in those little pockets of life where you used to show up. And now there's just air. You're not punishing them. You're just no longer feeding the illusion that your love is unconditional, no matter how they treat you. You see, my friend, silence is not the absence of love. It's the presence of self-respect. So if you've reached that moment, if you've stopped chasing, pulled back your energy, and finally chosen yourself, I want you to write this in the comments right now. I choose me. Say it with conviction. Type it with your truth. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you what it looks like when a person wakes up, grows up, and stands up for themselves. Because this is just the beginning. The first step in reclaiming your power. The first moment where the shift begins. Not in them, but in you. Stay with me, because what happens next? They don't just question what happened. They start fearing what they lost. Number 2, they expected a reaction, but you gave them nothing. You want to know what really breaks people? It's not shouting, it's not calling them out, it's not explaining your pain 100 times just to be ignored. No, what shatters the illusion of control is when you give them nothing. No anger, no attention, not even a reaction, just silence. Pure, powerful, unbothered silence. They poked, they tested, they pushed you over and over, thinking they could find the edge of your patience. They said things just to see if it would trigger you. They pulled back to see if you'd come running. It was all part of the game, all part of their strategy. If I create just enough tension, they'll fold. That's what they were counting on, that you'd crack, that you'd break the silence first, that you'd come back again. But this time, you didn't. You didn't scream, you didn't argue, you didn't send a long message explaining how much they hurt you. You didn't even send a just checking in. You vanished, not with bitterness, but with calmness, with intention, with the kind of peace that makes people stop in their tracks and ask, wait, what just happened? You see, people expect chaos. They expect drama. They expect you to prove your pain with a performance, because that's how they maintain control, by keeping you reactive. That way, even if you're mad, even if you're hurt, you're still engaged. They still have access to your energy. And as long as you're explaining yourself, justifying your silence, fighting to be understood, they're still in control. But when you give them nothing, that's when they feel powerless. That silence hits differently, because now they don't know what you're thinking, and people fear what they can't read. Now they're stuck wondering, are you over it? Have you moved on? Are you done for good? They keep checking their phone, refreshing the chat, scanning your socials, hoping for a sign. But you've left nothing behind. No clues, no trail, just silence. And that silence starts eating away at them, because your stillness tells the truth louder than your words ever could. It says, I'm not playing anymore. It says, you don't get to poke me like I'm a toy and expect me to come alive when it suits you. It says, I'm done. Let's pause for a second here, because I know what you might be feeling. That silence, it's not just hard on them, it's hard on you too. Because silence isn't just about ignoring someone, it's about confronting your own attachment. It's about choosing not to respond even when your heart is begging you to reach out. It's about holding the line even when your mind is screaming, what if they forgot me? But here's the truth, my friend. They didn't forget you. They remember every little moment, every late night call, every laugh, every word. They remember, but now they don't know if they still matter to you. That's what scares them, that uncertainty. That's the real punishment, not because you wanted to hurt them, but because they expected your silence to be temporary. They expected you to flinch, but you didn't. You see, silence is not the absence of noise. It's the presence of power. It's you saying without saying a word, I've given enough, I've explained enough, I've begged enough. Now I choose peace. That peace. Now, it doesn't scream, it doesn't beg for attention, it doesn't chase validation. It just exists, quiet, still, untouchable. And that's exactly why it rattles them. Because when someone loses emotional control over you, they feel like they're losing the upper hand. They thought they had you figured out. They thought they knew exactly what buttons to press. But now you're unreadable, unreachable, and that terrifies them. They wanted drama, you gave them distance. They expected rage, you gave them restraint. They assumed they'd always matter, but now they're not so sure. And that's what happens when you don't react. You become the mystery they can't solve, the ghost they can't forget, the calm they can't shake. So if you're sitting in that silence right now, if you're resisting the urge to reach out, to check in, to explain yourself, know this. You're not being weak, you're being wise. You're not being cold, you're being clear. Because not every storm needs thunder. Sometimes the most powerful storm is the one that arrives and says nothing. I want you to type this in the comments right now. I owe them nothing. Say it, show it. Let it be a reminder to yourself and to the world around you that you've stepped into your power, that your silence isn't a sign of defeat. It's the beginning of your dominance. Stay with me, my friend, because in the next moment of stillness, that's when their ego begins to starve. And trust me, things are about to shift even more. Number 3, silence makes them doubt their power over you. The human mind, especially the ego, hates not having answers. It hates silence, it hates stillness. It hates when something once predictable becomes a mystery. You used to be predictable, always there, always reacting, always replying, even when they were distant, even when they were careless, even when they were cold. You still showed up, you still cared, you still answered, but now you don't. You've gone quiet, no messages, no calls, no chasing. You've vanished, not with drama, but with discipline. And that silence, that stillness, is messing with their head in ways they never saw coming. They're not used to this version of you, the one who doesn't break, the one who doesn't reach, the one who doesn't react. At first, they told themselves you were just giving space, playing it cool, trying to make a point. But as more time passes, a little voice in their mind begins to whisper something different, something unsettling, something they can't ignore. What if I messed up? What if I pushed too far? What if they're actually gone? That's when the spiral begins, because your silence doesn't just confuse them, it threatens them. It threatens the illusion that they had power over you, that no matter what they did, you'd still return, that you'd still fight for them, prove your worth, and accept less than you deserved. But now they don't know where you stand. Now they're playing detective in a story they thought they were writing, rereading your old messages, zooming in on your last words, wondering if there were signs they missed. They replay every conversation, trying to figure out the exact moment when your energy changed, when your patience snapped, when your heart stopped showing up. That's what silence does. It creates questions, and those questions don't come with answers. They echo, they loop, they haunt. Why isn't he reacting? Why hasn't she come back? Did I go too far? Are they really done with me? These thoughts hit differently when there's no closure, no explanation, no dramatic ending to blame, just silence. Clean, calm, intentional silence. And that silence becomes a mirror, one they didn't expect, one they can't look away from. You see, when you stop talking, they're forced to listen to their own guilt, their own patterns, their own decisions. They start questioning their behavior, their pride, their games, not because you lectured them, but because your absence pulled the rug out from under their ego. They expected noise. You gave them nothing. They expected a performance. You gave them peace. But don't get it twisted. This silence isn't just difficult for them. It tests you too. Because there's a part of you that wants to say something, that wants to reach out, that wants to make sure they're thinking about you. You wonder if they're even feeling the weight of your silence, if they've even noticed. And that's where the fear creeps in. What if they're not spiraling? What if they don't care? But that fear, that's just your old self talking, the one who used to need proof of your worth, the one Who thought attention meant value? The one who believed your silence would go unnoticed. Let me tell you something. True power doesn't need to be seen to be felt. Your silence isn't empty. It's loaded. It's layered. It's a quiet revolution, a refusal to be predictable, a refusal to be manipulated. And that's what scares them most, because they don't know if you're done or if you've just leveled up. They don't know if they should reach out or wait. They don't know if you'll respond or stay quiet. And in that not knowing, that's where the fear lives, that's where the doubt grows, that's where the ego breaks. You're no longer the person they could rely on to fix things. You're no longer feeding their need for control. You're no longer playing the role they wrote for you. And now that you've rewritten the story without them, they don't know how to read the next chapter. That's the power of stillness, because silence doesn't just remove your voice. It reclaims your energy, and once you've taken that back, no one can twist your words. No one can use your reactions against you. No one can pull you back into their chaos. You're not giving them anything to work with, and that's what drives them mad. So if you're standing in that silence right now, holding the line, not reacting, not chasing, I want you to type this in the comments right now. I hold the power. Say it, own it, let it be your reminder, let it be your armor, let it be a message to them and to yourself that you've taken your power back, that their control ends where your silence begins. Stay with me, because next, that silence starts doing something even more dangerous. It starts starving their ego. And my friend, that's when things really begin to unravel. Number 4, disappearing is not weakness. It's psychological warfare. My friends, let's get one thing straight. Disappearing is not weakness. It's not pettiness. It's not some emotional temper tantrum. It is psychological warfare, the kind they never see coming. Because you didn't go silent to punish them. You didn't disappear to play mind games. You disappeared because you were done explaining your worth to someone who kept treating it like it was on clearance. You disappeared to protect your peace, and that peace comes with power they never prepared to face. See, most people are only strong when they can see your next move, when they can predict your reaction, when they know exactly how far they can push before you snap. They thrive off the cycle. Poke, trigger, pull back, wait for the response. And for the longest time, you gave them that. Not because you were weak, but because you cared. You had a heart. You believed that if you just explained yourself one more time, if you just held on a little longer, maybe, just maybe, they'd change. But they didn't, and now neither did you. You disappeared. No text, no closure, no second chance. You didn't block them, you just stopped giving them access. You removed your attention, you removed your energy, and suddenly they're left standing in the same space where they used to find comfort. But now it's cold, empty, and unfamiliar. What they didn't understand was this. When you walk away with dignity, you take something with you. You take the version of you that used to overextend. The one who tolerated disrespect, the one who loved loudly while being heard softly. That version is gone, and what's left? Stillness, silence, a void. People fear the void because the void is where their accountability echoes back at them. The void is where their games lose oxygen. The void is where their ego suffocates without your reaction feeding it. Here's the raw truth. People can't manipulate what they can't reach. They can't control what they can't predict. And when you disappear, not with hate, but with calm indifference, you become the storm they never saw coming. You become the question that keeps them up at night. You become the closure they never get. Let me give you a metaphor, folks. Imagine a boxer who's been training for a fight. They've studied their opponent, memorized every move, every pattern. But on the night of the match, their opponent doesn't show up. No bell, no crowd, just an empty ring. That's what disappearing feels like to someone who expected to play with your emotions. They were ready for a battle, but you refused to give them a stage. And now they're punching the air, fighting their own shadows, talking to a silence that doesn't talk back. But let's not sugarcoat it. It takes real strength to disappear, because disappearing means facing your own fears. The fear that they won't care, the fear that they'll replace you, the fear that your silence won't be felt. And those fears, they scream in the beginning. They pull at your chest. They make you want to check in, send a message, leave a trail. But that's where the test is. Because when you disappear, you don't just deprive them of access. You give yourself permission to finally breathe, to stop performing, to stop giving CPR to connections that flatlined long ago. And you realize something powerful. You never needed to be louder, you just needed to be gone. Let them wonder, let them spiral, let them try to decode your silence. You're not avoiding conflict, you're rejecting chaos. You're not being petty, you're being private. You're not trying to hurt them, you're trying to heal you. Because here's the twist. Disappearing doesn't mean you vanished. It means you've become invisible to dysfunction. You've become unreachable to manipulation. You've become untouchable to the same cycle that used to trap you. And trust me, they feel it, even if they don't say it, even if they pretend it doesn't bother them. They feel your absence in the places where your energy used to live. The laugh they don't hear anymore, the support they don't get anymore, the calm presence that once grounded them is now gone. You've become the ghost in their story, the one that doesn't haunt out of revenge, but out of restraint, out of silence, out of strength. So if you're here right now choosing silence over noise, choosing peace over validation, I want you to type this in the comments. I choose peace. Not for them, not for appearances, but for you, for your growth, for your sanity. Let it be your reminder, let it be your power, let it be your line in the sand. And stay with me, because what happens next, they don't just miss you, they obsess over you. And that, my friend, is where the silence gets louder than ever. Number 5. The ego starts starving, and that's when the obsession begins. When the ego can't feed on attention, it feeds on confusion. At first, they act like they're fine, like your silence means nothing, like they're unbothered. They laugh louder, post more, share vague quotes like, "I'm at peace." But my friends, peace doesn't need to be broadcast, and calm doesn't need a filter. What you're really seeing is not healing, it's coping. And beneath that fake calm, something fragile is starting to crack. The ego. The ego is a tricky thing. It doesn't just want love, it wants control. It wants to know that no matter how it acts, you'll still come running. That no matter how distant or dismissive they were, you'll still reach out. That even in silence, your attention will orbit around them like the sun never sets. But when you stop feeding the ego, when you ghost them, when you disappear with discipline, it begins to starve. And the ego doesn't starve quietly. Suddenly they're watching your story, even though they said they were done. They're checking your page, scrolling through your posts, searching for a sign, anything, a like, a view, a quote that sounds like it's about them. But nothing comes. You've gone silent, still unavailable. And that silence, it doesn't just bother them, it unravels them. Because the attention they once took for granted has been cut off. The constant reassurance they never had to ask for is gone. The source of their ego's fuel, your validation, has dried up. Now they're throwing bait, a selfie, a throwback, a cryptic caption, something that says, "I'm good without you" on the surface, but underneath it's whispering, "Are you watching?" But you're not. You've stopped taking the bait. You've stopped checking. You've stopped reacting. You've stopped showing up in ways they never had to earn. And that right there is what hurts them most. Because now they realize they don't have the grip they thought they did. They thought you'd fold, that the silence was just a phase, that you'd reach out eventually. But days are passing and nothing, no message, no call, not even a view on their story. And it's driving them insane because for the first time, they're not in control of the narrative. You are. See, when someone's used to attention as a form of control, your silence feels like punishment, even when you're not trying to hurt them, even when you're just healing. And that's the ego's worst nightmare, losing the ability to influence how you feel, how you move, how you react. That's when obsession creeps in, quietly, slowly. They start dreaming about you, wondering about you. They start replaying conversations in their head, scrolling through old chats, trying to see where things changed. They become haunted by the version of you they thought they had forever access to. But you vanished, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. And that's the part they never expected. You see, the ego never thinks the supply will run dry. It assumes it will always have an open line to your heart. But now that line is cut, that signal dead. You're not punishing them, you're just not performing anymore. And without your energy, without your reaction, without your presence, they start to feel small. Because the truth is, they didn't just crave your attention. They needed it to feel powerful, to feel desired, to feel like they mattered. And now, without it, the silence doesn't just make them curious, it makes them insecure. They'll try to replace you, distract themselves, swipe, scroll, surround themselves with noise. But the silence always catches up. And when it does, it reminds them that what they lost wasn't just a person. It was access to something pure, something steady, something real. But here's where your strength comes in. You could reach out. You could give them what their ego is dying for. One message, one view, one accidental like. But you don't. Because you've grown. Because you know now your attention is currency, and not everyone deserves it. You've learned that silence isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's you saying, I no longer give energy to what drains me. So if you're holding that silence, if you've gone cold, not from hate, but from healing, I want you to write this in the comments right now. My silence is strength. Say it with intention. Say it for yourself. Say it for the version of you that once thought attention was the only way to be loved. Stay with me because the silence isn't done speaking yet. Next, you become the question they can't answer. Number 6, you don't need to explain yourself when your absence says it all. My friends, here's where it gets deep. You were the constant, the calm, the clarity in the middle of their chaos. You were the one who showed up even when they didn't say thank you. You were the one who listened even when they weren't talking. You were the one who tried to make sense of something that barely made sense. In return, you didn't just care, you understood. You paid attention to details no one else noticed. You remembered the things they forgot. You made effort look effortless. And now you're gone. Not in a loud, messy way. You didn't slam the door. You didn't throw blame. You didn't announce your exit. You just stopped being available. And now they're left with questions. Questions that don't come with answers. Questions that echo in rooms they once shared with you. Was he really done? Did she stop loving me? Was I the one who ruined this? That's the torment because now they're not sure. And uncertainty is a wound the ego doesn't know how to heal. So they start dissecting. They go back to the texts, back to the voice notes, back to the way you used to say, I got you, when they were falling apart. They study your silences like they're clues. They zoom in on the last thing you said like it's a riddle they never solved. They replay the moments they brushed off before, wondering, was that the moment I lost them? They look for signs they ignored when they thought they had you forever. And the longer you stay silent, the louder those questions get. Because now you're the mystery. And here's the truth they never expected to face. You weren't just someone they dated. You weren't just a temporary part of their story. You were the answer to a lot of things they never figured out: peace, stability, presence, realness. But now that answer is out of reach. They don't even know how to form the question anymore. Because when someone is used to your presence, your consistency, your understanding, and you suddenly remove it, they don't just feel loss, they feel confusion. And that confusion becomes obsession. Did I mess this up? Did they change? Or did I push them away? Will they come back? Are they already over me? What's wild is you've probably asked yourself those same questions before. You cried into the silence long before they ever heard it. You stayed up overthinking, over-giving, over-loving while they acted like it was nothing. You were the question for yourself once, but not anymore. Because now you're the answer, and they just realized they never studied for the test. You see, people always think they'll have time. Time to make it right, time to come back, time to keep you on standby. But you didn't walk away for attention. You disappeared for protection, your own. And now they're feeling the weight of something they didn't prepare for. A you that no longer needs them, a you that no longer explains, a you that doesn't chase, a you that outgrew the question and became the conclusion. It's crazy how quiet you've become and how loud your absence is. They didn't expect to miss someone who didn't make a scene. But that's the thing about real presence. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It just is. And when it's gone, it leaves a silence you can't ignore. So let them wonder, let them question, let them unravel. Because the real you, the one who tried so hard to be understood, is finally free from explaining, free from proving, free from translating your worth into words for someone who only ever listened to their own voice. If you've reached this point, if you've become the question they can't answer, I want you to write this in the comments. I was always the answer. Say it, type it, feel it. For the version of you that spent too long thinking you were the problem, because now you don't chase clarity, you are clarity, and the silence that once makes them insecure. They'll try to replace you, distract themselves, swipe, scroll, surround themselves with noise. But the silence always catches up. And when it does, it reminds them that what they lost wasn't just a person. It was access to something pure, something steady, something real. But here's where your strength comes in. You could reach out. You could give them what their ego is dying for. One message, one view, one accidental like. But you don't. Because you've grown. Because you know now your attention is currency, and not everyone deserves it. You've learned that silence isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's you saying, I no longer give energy to what drains me. So if you're holding that silence, if you've gone cold, not from hate, but from healing, I want you to write this in the comments right now. My silence is strength. Say it with intention. Say it for yourself. Say it for the version of you that once thought attention was the only way to be loved. Stay with me because the silence isn't done speaking yet. Next, you become the question they can't answer. Number 6, you don't need to explain yourself when your absence says it all. My friends, here's where it gets deep. You were the constant, the calm, the clarity in the middle of their chaos. You were the one who showed up even when they didn't say thank you. You were the one who listened even when they weren't talking. You were the one who tried to make sense of something that barely made sense. In return, you didn't just care, you understood. You paid attention to details no one else noticed. You remembered the things they forgot. You made effort look effortless. And now you're gone. Not in a loud, messy way. You didn't slam the door, you didn't throw blame, you didn't announce your exit. You just stopped being available. And now they're left with questions. Questions that don't come with answers. Questions that echo in rooms they once shared with you. Was he really done? Did she stop loving me? Was I the one who ruined this? That's the torment because now they're not sure. And uncertainty is a wound the ego doesn't know how to heal. So they start dissecting. They go back to the texts, back to the voice notes, back to the way you used to say, "I got you," when they were falling apart. They study your silences like they're clues. They zoom in on the last thing you said like it's a riddle they never solved. They replay the moments they brushed off before, wondering, was that the moment I lost them? They look for signs they ignored when they thought they had you forever. And the longer you stay silent, the louder those questions get. Because now you're the mystery. And here's the truth they never expected to face. You weren't just someone they dated. You weren't just a temporary part of their story. You were the answer to a lot of things they never figured out: peace, stability, presence, realness. But now that answer is out of reach. They don't even know how to form the question anymore. Because when someone is used to your presence, your consistency, your understanding, and you suddenly remove it, they don't just feel loss, they feel confusion. And that confusion becomes obsession. Did I mess this up? Did they change, or did I push them away? Will they come back? Are they already over me? What's wild is you've probably asked yourself those same questions before. You cried into the silence long before they ever heard it. You stayed up overthinking, overgiving, overloving while they acted like it was nothing. You were the question for yourself once, but not anymore. Because now you're the answer, and they just realized they never studied for the test. You see, people always think they'll have time. Time to make it right, time to come back, time to keep you on standby. But you didn't walk away for attention. You disappeared for protection, your own. And now they're feeling the weight of something they didn't prepare for. A you that no longer needs them, a you that no longer explains, a you that doesn't chase, a you that outgrew the question and became the conclusion. It's crazy how quiet you've become and how loud your absence is. They didn't expect to miss someone who didn't make a scene. But that's the thing about real presence. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It just is. And when it's gone, it leaves a silence you can't ignore. So let them wonder, let them question, let them unravel. Because the real you, the one who tried so hard to be understood, is finally free from explaining, free from proving, free from translating your worth into words for someone who only ever listened to their own voice. If you've reached this point, if you've become the question they can't answer, I want you to write this in the comments. I was always the answer. Say it, type it, feel it. For the version of you that spent too long thinking you were the problem, because now you don't chase clarity, you are clarity, and the silence that once felt painful is now your power. Stay with me, because in the next breath they won't just question what happened. They'll start searching for you in places you'll never return to. Number 7, they go looking for you in every distraction and find nothing. You can't replace presence with noise. It echoes louder in silence. Once you're gone, my friends, they don't sit in the quiet, not right away. No, first they reach for distractions. They flood their time with meaningless chatter. They text people they don't even care about. Swipe right, swipe left, chase quick dopamine hits. A rebound here, a story there, a post that screams, I'm unbothered, but it's all smoke, all noise, all empty. Because they're not trying to move on, they're trying to avoid the void you left behind. They thought they could replace you like you were a contact in their phone, like the next conversation would bring the same grounding peace you gave them. But it doesn't. It never does. Because you weren't just someone to talk to. You were a presence, a calm, a mirror they didn't want to look into but always felt safe around. And now that peace is gone and the chaos they used to ignore, it's screaming. You see, peace doesn't make a scene. It doesn't yell. It doesn't demand attention. It disappears. And when it's gone, the world feels heavier, louder, unstable. They don't miss your texts. They miss how they felt around you, safe, heard, held. But it's too late now because peace, once disrespected, doesn't return. So if you've stepped back, if you've reclaimed your stillness and refused to be just another distraction in someone else's chaos, write this in the comments. I am peace. Let them chase noise. You've become the silence they can't replace. And stay with me because next, they realize you were never playing hard to get. You've simply become hard to reach. Number 8. Disappearing wasn't a move. It was your rebirth. Let's set the record straight, my friends. You didn't disappear to play games. You didn't fall silent to hurt them. You weren't trying to win, you were trying to heal. You stopped reaching out, not because you stopped caring, but because for once, you started caring about you. And that isn't weakness, that's rebirth. They thought your silence meant you gave up, but they missed the truth entirely. Your silence wasn't the end, it was the beginning of you stepping back into your power, the beginning of you no longer begging to be seen, the beginning of peace. They thought you were silent, but your silence was the sound of you rising. You didn't walk away to break their heart. You walked away to find yours again. And now that you have, you're not just gone. You've outgrown the version of you who stayed too long. So if you've risen quietly, if you've disappeared with dignity, I want you to write this in the comments. I've been reborn. Say it for your past. Say it for your future. And stay with me, because your next chapter is no longer written in pain, but in power. To wrap this all up, disappearing wasn't your downfall. It was your awakening. You didn't walk away to play cold. You walked away to finally feel whole. And now your silence speaks louder than anything you could have said. Let them feel it. Let them learn. Let them miss the you they thought would always stay. If this message hit something real inside you, tap that like button, subscribe for more content like this, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that their silence is not weakness, it's power. And remember, your peace is your priority, always.